Hello, welcome to New Ways to Evolve. My name is Brian Hardin, and today's guest is Kaliyani Sundari. Kaliyani is a spiritually inspired visionary, modern mystic, community builder, and a compassionate midwife to the rebirth of the sacred feminine in our collective consciousness. Her sole purpose is reflected in her work as artist, writer, producer, soul coach, and facilitator of women's sacred circles. So welcome to the show, Kaliyani. Hi there.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
So what I'd love to hear about today is some tools and tricks and tips that you might have for advice for how people can change their frequency and stay happy and healthy and creative in this odd time that we're in.
All right. Well, I feel that how I do it is to listen. I just listen. I try to be a very good listener and connect to nature and stay open to the messages, because I feel when we listen, we're able to take the steps in the direction that would be in the highest service, I guess you could say that. So that's how I do. It's about not the 1, 2, 3 for me of this is how you get from A to B and B to C. I am a little more eclectic in how I operate, and I think it's because I am more undisciplined in a sense. I feel that authenticity, integrity, walking the talk, your commitment to your core values, living with your commitment to truth above all things, and living beyond concept and mind and to-do lists of, if I do this, I'm a good person. I am more about when I'm in my core values and I'm committed to truth and I live with integrity and I am courageous and I am quiet and at peace, then I can hear. So I can hear what is in greater alignment with the moment, because sometimes we tend, and we've been trained and programmed to think that way more traditionally. There is a certain way to do things that is right, there is right and there is wrong. And I think I've gone past that at this point, and it's all about embracing everything, and everything is sacred, and then tuning in to what's right now for who I am in this moment, for the climate, the overall world place, because sticking to one thing all the time is not the formula for every time. And my perception of reality is every new moment requires a different aspect of us to step through, to be involved, and how we get involved can change. It's about learning the fluidity of the feminine. Okay, here we go again. There is a shift from rigidity to softness, and the softness is fluid, right? It's shaped by the moment, by the container, and the container is more than physical. It's everything, but it is the physical too. So my tip is be yourself, be authentic in your heart, and listen to what's real in here, to what's true in here, not to what's been written by some books or some traditions, which can be valuable. Take it all in, but then create your own soup and be humble. Be humble to listen, because I have a big mind, I confess. And but I also have had to learn to relinquish the mind, to give room for wisdom to be alchemized from that content, from that knowledge, and to completely let go of the knowledge altogether and synthesize something else, alchemize through being present to listening, to the higher self, to the, however you want to call it, universe, intelligence, source, spirit, truth, higher density beings, angels, guardians, your higher version of yourself that's residing in a different time reality, right? However we want to see, details don't matter, but it's just tuning into that. And how do we tune into that? Walk the talk. I feel that we've come to a time in evolution where we don't have much more to learn. We actually have to unlearn. There is a lot to unteach and to unlearn. If anything, we have to commit to the content that is within instead of the content that is outside, right? Because mental content alone does not create. Everybody's a teacher today. Everybody knows so much, and everybody can teach you how to get here or there, or achieve this and that. But to me, it's time for embodiment, and this is the phase we're going into. We're going to start having to go to the next level, which is live your life as an example. Manifest as an example, and your life becomes the teaching, right? How you walk through life. That's where I'm at. That's what's real for me.
So that's amazing that all the creativity has really been bursting out of a lot of people these days. And with that, we're getting out of our mind. We actually have time enough to quiet our mind and time to get into our heart and our intuition. And those are kind of feminine attributes. And I know what you do is promote positive, new paradigm thinking with the feminine. Can you explain how you do that?
I feel like that I was initiated into that back in 2003 through the dissolution of my marriage. That was in that process. I started praying. I did a very long 3-page long paper, 3 pages of writing of a prayer that I knew or heard of when I was a kid. And I grew up praying a lot. Prayer was always part of my life, thanks to my mom. And I was born, Christian Catholic, but she never took us to church. She just believed in the Christ, and she believed in prayer. So she taught us prayer, and I could never fall asleep without prayer. And during my marriage, I was married to someone who was severely traumatized by religion, for having having a Jewish father and a Christian mother, and then not quite understanding. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into it. So he didn't know the difference between spirituality and religion. And I grew up very, very much like a mystic child. I was already very into this stuff from a very early age. But in the period of my marriage, I kind of sort of became really grounded. He came to gift me with being grounded. He loved life. He lived life big. And I needed some grounding, actually. So I think it was a really wonderful thing. And but to protect his fragility, I saw him cry many times talking about half of his family being killed in concentration camps. And to see a big man like that, a powerful man that he was, cry, I felt like I needed to just keep my mysticism in check. And then I got really busy becoming a mother. and being just in life, doing life, being married. And I put my books away, I put my tools away, but I kept on praying. And then little by little, I was married for 14 and a half years, technically, but I've been with him another year and a half, so 16 years together. Towards the end, the second half of that, I kind of forgot who I was. I was disconnected from my original soul imprint and who I was as a consequence of this new life. And when the marriage was falling apart, I started this prayer process, and I would not go to sleep or wait before I put my foot on the ground in the morning without reading this prayer, which eventually I memorized it, and it's a beautiful prayer. And that's when everything happened, and I was asking for discernment, which is something I asked all my life whenever I prayed. Discernment and truth. I wanted truth, and I wanted my life to be in harmony again, right? And everything started to be revealed to me, which was very painful, And at the inception of that rearranging of life, because when you want, and you don't mind what it's going to take, but you want to be realigned with your purpose, and you want to have love in your life and feel that you're in tune with who you're meant to be here on purpose and living the life that you were meant to live. And you ask that with such conviction and such fortitude of heart presence and devotion, the universe will rearrange your life, and it may not look comfortable for a while. And when that happened, I started seeing Kuan Yin everywhere. I didn't know who she was. She showed up in dreams, in visions, through glass. And I just kept seeing this Asian woman. I sometimes, because I would see just a silhouette with a bun, and I would think, associate with a geisha or something. I had never, even though I've studied so much through my teen years and young adulthood before even I came to the United States, Hermeticism, theosophy, astrology, numerology, Kabbalah. I was into all of that. I did hands-on healing as a teenager. I read tarot cards. I could analyze calligraphy. I was already doing that as a teenager. But when she came up, it was almost like this avalanche of my soul coming back to me. And it took me a while, because even though I had studied so many different versions of spirituality and mysticism, the occult, I had never gone into so much of a Buddhist approach, or had known that, cosmology so much. So I have so much gratitude for that, because if I had known her identity before, of this archetype, of this presence that we call Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion, I probably would have doubted myself, because I'm very, I'm very demanding to the things that I believe, to be manifesting from a different realm. It has to be hitting me really strongly. And it was a beautiful process. And at that time, I had all kinds of things happening around me, including meeting Shankari, who designed Talismans of Power, which is this pendant I'm wearing here. This pendant has Kuan Yin etched in the back. Shankari became a dear friend eventually, but I had not known her at all. And she came into my life, and she dresses like Kuan Yin. She wears these long, beautiful silk robes and silk skirts, and she has black, long hair, and she ties it into a bun over her head. And she's a beautiful sister who lives in Bali, between Bali and Hawaii. And she's an extraordinary creatrix. She is one of the most creative beings I've ever met in terms of art, mosaics, and she's a designer. And she has this company. Now it's called, you can find her platform in shankari.com. And this is a long journey, but literally she was the goddess whisperer, the first one in 2003. And the first sacred circles I sat in were with Shankari. And that was like the crawling stage of my invitation. While Kuan Yin was appearing in dreams, and even before I found her name, I was being, messages were coming from books, and it was quite extraordinary. And I knew I had a deep connection and a mission and a purpose with that. And it was not quite fully assembled. You see, it took years of this assimilation, and here I am today, working with women, going through 2 years of training with the 13-Women Mystery School and the work of Ariel Spilsbury, and just amplifying that, and I feel it's always an invitation. The universe, when we are open and surrendered to our calling, if we listen, and then we're going to be taken to the places we need to go. And the music came through that energy. I've become sort of a mother to the mother, if you think of the divine feminine as the mother of us all and the other half of the Godhead. My passion for this energy and the importance I felt, and it's a cellular understanding of the importance of bringing this energy back and honoring it, not only in our consciousness but in our culture, to see it reflect in our art, in our content, in our media, because only when we see it expressed in all other areas do we know it's really anchored in our consciousness, because what we output is actually content that's inside of us. And if we look at media right now, the stuff that's out there is
it's polluted.
It's so far from where we could be.
It's polluted, right?
So tainted, so damaging to the true core of our soul and of our reality and who we really are. It's stained. It's stained, and it's confused a lot of us. And so, I'm committed to this awakening of the sacred feminine within all of humanity, and men and women alike, because all of us have been in the same program, just different versions of it, but having to relearn so much. It's more about unlearn. We have so much to unlearn as opposed to learn, and so
I actually believe that we were all raised, we are what we think, And same with this manifestation. A lot of people teach manifestation by, you have to think it. But it's really dropping into this place of feeling, of intuition, of heart. It's letting your mind quiet and not be the leader anymore, but actually quiet and sit back and let your heart take lead. Let your intuition take lead and feel things. And I've actually heard it said that that false masculine protects the ego, the mind, whereas true masculine protects the truth. And the truth doesn't come from here. The truth comes from feeling and from letting it in. So really what I'd love for you to go over is some new paradigm ways of looking at even femininity too, and masculinity, because the old paradigm, for 2,000 years we lived in this Piscean age of judgment, good and bad, and we're headed in this Aquarian age, which is not any longer judge and hate and argue, blame and complain, but a whole new area. So what I'm wondering is, because you are on the cutting edge of this, teaching this femininity from not the old paradigm, act like a man, but feel. Can you explain some of like your prayers that you do and how that all works?
Well, it would be a little much for me to try to explain what I teach and how I teach, and it takes a lot of training. But in a nutshell, it's really about relearning what we are, who we are, and what the feminine and the masculine is, and because women have been part of this masculine patriarchal culture, where we have chosen, I don't even like the wording anymore, but whatever the program has been, believing that certain values are more important than others, right? That's when women were considered, the softness, right, was equated to, for example, just to give an example, to weakness, right? That women are fragile and all this force instead of strength, right? There's magnetism and electricity, and there's certain things were favored. And as women became more free from the religious imprints, of what was a very dark age, where if we contested whatever was happening, we would be decapitated and all that. And as we moved into a more illumined place, and then the Industrial Revolution and the wars, and women had to come into the workplace, we became very confused. We also adopted the theory that we had to be like man. So women also had, and some of us still there, a lot of us are still in this place, unfortunately, where to survive in corporate world, we have to put our boots and pants and we have to go fight. And we became hard and we became like man. And it's interesting now because this time, men are feeling kind of lost. It's been a couple of decades where you go on a date and you thought you just were having dinner with a guy, and men are craving that, and that feminine thing that's not there anymore, that essence, that softness that doesn't lose its strength. And we had to relearn and unlearn. So through unlearning what we were made to believe, osmotically, culturally, entrenched in messages, subliminal messages everywhere, we had to unlearn the idea of what being a woman is and what being feminine is, and embrace what truly being a woman is. Erasing the program that being soft and compassionate and nurturing is a weakness, and that makes us vulnerable and weak. It's actually empowering and it's strong. What makes us weak has nothing to do with being feminine or masculine. To me, what makes us weak is when we're vulnerable to the ego, right? Which the ego has its nice, beautiful place and purpose as well, which I am not going to take away. But again, being a slave to mind and not embodying, a lot of people like what I call spiritual materialism out there. Chogyam Trungpa wrote a beautiful collection, and he was one of these Tibetan Rinpoches. There's a beautiful movie called Crazy Wisdom, actually. I don't know if you've seen. But he talks a lot about spiritual materialism. There's a huge community of very spiritual beings doing wonderful things, and they are, as long as they're helping other people, that's beautiful. But actually internally, they're far from being spiritual. See? And that's what we have to understand, that what gets us into a weak spot is actually not having the discernment to understand the difference between content and mental knowledge that I can teach and I can tell you about it, and embodiment, where you're living as that, where truth is your highest commitment. It's not even like being an ally to your friends and your community and whoever his agendas are, but that you speak the truth and you speak what's real for you. And by doing so, you're in great service to all who cross your path, because you're being authentic and you're giving the transmission that is in highest service to that being when you speak the truth. Sometimes truths are hard to hear, but they catapult you forward, right? So,
could I interrupt here? Which is, for me, knowing the truth doesn't come from here. Knowing the truth comes from feeling it. Your body actually can feel whether things are true or wrong.
Absolutely.
And that's the same, like morals are from your head, ethics are from the heart. And when there's really a true connection to how you feel, when you quiet the ego mind, you can actually know the truth. And knowing the truth is feeling the truth. Do you agree with any of that?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And when I say truth, living the truth, it's my truth, my authenticity, my gut feeling, my response to what's real for me, with as little influence from anything outside that could hold a string on me, right? An interest, I could want to be abundant and more abundant, like everybody wants abundance, but will I at some point stomp on my value system? And when I speak of truth, I am referring a lot to integrity, which is, what are our core values? First of all, know thyself, right? We are not etched in stone, even though there's a lot of genetically already there and soul imprints that are already there that you're bringing from another life. But every new moment, you have an opportunity to create yourself and choose who you are by the choices you're making, right? So when I say truth, I say my truth in sense of the commitment I have to being the person I want to be, to showing up in the world how I would look at myself and say, I like this person. I really like how they're walking their walk and they're talking their talk, because there's no difference between one and the other. So when I say truth, I mean your truth in terms of the integrity you're holding, and that your words are not empty, right? Yogananda always said, watch what you speak. Watch how you say what you say. Your words are magical. And lies, even white lies, they drain the energy, the power in your words. See, it's something you can't see with the eyes, but are those things that you don't understand. Some people are like, they're trying to push something forward and it doesn't go because, some element of magic, which we like to call magic, because it is the invisible. It's the manifestation of our vibrational reality. So I think, did I answer your question?
So yes, you answered that beautifully. So the Lama that you spoke about earlier.
Chogyan Trungpa. Yeah, is a Tibetan Rinpoche. He was he was a bit of a rebel. There were some Rinpoches, some Tibetan Rinpoches that were very unique, and he was absolutely unique. And you would have to check his, but he wrote a huge collection of knowledge and wisdom. And I think one of the great gifts is the awareness of spiritual materialism that is rampant, has been rampant lately.
My favorite from him is he said there's two types of compassion: actual compassion and idiot compassion. And I myself was raised as full of idiot compassion. I was taught to drop everything of my own and go about helping other people at all times. And so I'd find myself just literally forgetting about my own needs and helping other people, and then enabling them to remain in a dysfunctional place. So if it was an alcoholic friend of mine, I was always, I'm sure you're no problem, and it's okay, you wrecked my car, or whatever, and enabling them to stay dysfunctional, when really I needed to put them in jail, or I needed to, say enough, set rules, regulations, and boundaries. So he says actual compassion is setting those rules, regulations, and boundaries, and is sometimes rude and harsh. You've got to actually step up and hold people accountable for their actions. And so that is an odd way. It doesn't mean you have to go punch them. It means that you just have to set those boundaries. And Brene Brown speaks about those same boundaries, that in order to be compassionate and give and care for other people in the right way, you actually have to set those boundaries. When you set boundaries and say, this is the line, do not cross it, then suddenly you can come from a much more compassionate place and really help someone. And help them see themselves and be a bigger person of themselves, and also have a better relationship. Is that all truth to you?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes. The good compassion and stupid compassion are just, there's no such thing as stupid compassion when compassion is compassion, right? Because the word in itself should define what it is. Compassion is the highest form of love, in my understanding, from being, I'd say, receiving and open to this energy through Kuan Yin's presence in my life. My understanding of compassion has nothing to do with pity, for sure. And it is the highest form of love, which means it is a love that carries tremendous understanding of the greater reality, and it's a love that's infused with profound wisdom. The stupid compassion is a compassion, or it's like it's attached. It's like kindness and empathy, but devoid of wisdom. This is how I see it. And that's why we may serve someone in a certain way that is deserving to them, right? Just like you said. And the fierce love, which is how I sign a lot of my writing, is the highest compassion. Because when this compassion, this highest form of compassion, is infused with wisdom, sometimes a slap, a Kali-esque chop of ego heads, a dramatic shift. Like, if I didn't get this, at the moment I was praying, so devoted to this prayer for probably over a month, twice a day, like it was my practice. And my life falls completely apart. And the harshest truths are revealed to me. That is the highest form of love, because of that revelation that was difficult. I think some part of Buddhist wisdom talks about the bitter tea. Drinking from the bitter tea is important to transition. Not everything that is good for you will taste sweet, right? We know that. It's like liver cleanse. It's like this bitter thing you have to take, but your liver is going to love that, and it's good for you. So it's like that. Compassion. There's no such thing as stupid compassion. It's a misnomer, but I can understand what is meant, and that's how I understand it. Because compassion in itself, that name, that word, it means it's love, the greatest form of love and wisdom combined. It's fierce love. It's not afraid of giving you a little spanking when you need it, because it's good for you, and it's the highest thing they could do for your soul. And that's life. Life, the mystery school of life, I call. We never know when the curveball is going to come, but it's a loving gesture. It's so hard a pill to swallow, but it's always a gesture of love from the universe, because it's overseeing everything all the time.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So the feminine group that you have, the circle, is it the Phoenix Rising Sacred Sisterhood?
Rising Phoenix Sisterhood is a more temple related. It's more deep spiritual practices and working with archetypes, deep embodiment practices that are very serious. Like we could be in a circle, in a sacred circle like that, working around a certain archetype for 11 hours, one shot, 7, 8 hours, 9 hours. And it's very centered, and some of these require us to actually be very playful or very expressive, and so grateful for the work of Ariel and her book, Alchemy of Ecstasy. It's just such a new download, and it's so with the times to create the space for women to not have a limitation to how far they can reach, because the history of our past 6,000 years or so, we have not been able to become a voice for the divine. We were extricated from leadership positions in all traditional institutionalized religions that have dominated our world for the last 2,000 years. So I think it's very important. What happened is women, after waking up from the grip of fear, through persecution that was so strong, when the persecution slowed down, we were able to analyze and look, and then archaeology brought us a lot of help in understanding the past. And then we figured that we don't want to be a part of that anyways. You don't let us be priests. You don't let us be a rabbi. Some versions of they now are innovating and allowing that to happen. Catholic Church still does not allow a woman to be a priest. Forget a pope. And what women have had to do is say, we don't need to be under your roof or under your writing, because we actually have transcended that. We understand that there's a lot of tainted. It's tainted. There's a lot of untruths there that is mixed with a lot of beautiful things. But that has been a manipulative too. So we naturally started to go into nature. Nature became our temple, and we created homes to become temples, and we started gathering and sharing our pain and our sorrow, and also sharing our joy and our glory, and discovering again what it is together, what it is to be feminine and exalted, and find that reflection in the divine, which is, how can we tune into the archetypal divine presence, the sovereign divine feminine that is the other half of the Godhead, like I like to explain, and let that heal us. Allow us to feel dignified and healed and worthy of of the divine, and understanding that all this trauma, pain, and wounds that we were carrying were just that. They're not reality. They're just a byproduct of circumstances, of unfortunate circumstances. So I think there are many models to this form of feminine spirituality, which is drawing from a lot of the best spiritual traditions. It's like taking the nuggets from all these ancient traditions and adding new things that are our own downloads that are coming to us to this part, and throwing the tainted stuff away, and then rising inside, rising to really embody the power of the goddess, right? Which is this place of knowing, this place of being in touch with spirit so deeply, and understanding the parts we play, and putting the things in the right places, letting go of what doesn't serve us anymore, and stepping into the throne of sovereignty with peace, with understanding, with love, learning to become bigger, more loving containers as we process the pain, because it's very important not to swing the pendulum all the way to the other side and then repeat history again just with a different version of it. It's like looking at the negative of the picture. And so when I am with my sisters as a focalizer, because in this group we learn from each other. There is no leader, or some people like to call me that or something, and I think it's not really correct, because I am learning from each one of them, and all of them. Nobody needs permission to talk. We have a way to hold space that is organized, and there's certain parameters that are very important to keep, and we all agree. But we all learning all the time from each other's experiences, from the beauty of how they showed up during a moment or a circumstance, or even in that present moment for whatever is happening. There's always a feedback happening all the time. I'm not sure if I'm staying on track.
It doesn't matter, because it's all related, because you spoke about Kuan Yin, you spoke about the Phoenix Rising, and really it's a new pattern also of feminine that's showing up. The Dalai Lama himself said, "The world will be saved by Western women." And it's not necessarily women. I think it's the new paradigm of also masculinity, having to reinvent it also, reinvent femininity and masculinity in this new frequency. And if you do the astrology right now, the planets are ripe. And all my astrologer friends leading up to 2012 were saying, 2012 is no big deal. 2020 is the astrology popping point where we're really going to be challenged to see a new way. And so I think we're really ripe right now. This whole going inward has forced us all to go inward. And we're getting to feel new things, think new things. And I think people, instead of being so addicted to that rat race, the little rats are calming down, and we're all realizing what really makes me happy. Is being force and winning and competition the thing? No. And in fact, Darwin himself, if you in the competition of the fittest or whatever that thing that Darwin wrote. He only spoke about that competition a couple times. He really spoke about love more often than anything. And so these attributes of love, we toughen up and be ego and win. That's what we were taught. And instead of me, this new paradigm is about we. And so when you have your circles, your feminine grandmother's type circles, the grandmothers all gather in that circle. Your groups all gather in a circle where everyone's an equal, and it's a family, and everybody has something to learn from everybody. Dalai Lama himself has got his mind wide open to learning from everybody. The child, the animal, the dog. The dog will teach you a lesson. The child will teach you. And so, all your teaching principles are about that unity and compassion and we. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's all based on that, on equality, on empowering, not taking the power away. The old paradigm of teaching was, you have to listen to me, and only I know the truth. And God forbid you get even closer to being like me, because then I'm threatened. And that's teaching from an ego perspective. I tell the sisters all the time that I want nothing but them to rise and go form their own circles. Go do whatever it is they're called to do. Don't let me stop them. I've had circles in which, sisters would like, oh, I'm sorry, I was going to do a Kali embodiment with my offering, but I thought I couldn't because your name is Kaliyani, and I thought and I was like, oh, God bless you. I don't own Kali. There's nothing. I don't, Kali Kaliyani is a name that came through some agitation, but just to give you an idea how we are used to operating, right? We don't want to step in other people's calluses, because calluses are actually little manifestations of our ego. And people are so sensitive, to this is my creation. There's nothing that is your creation. Everything is reshuffling, reorganizing, and it's a rearranging of understanding, of expression, of knowledge, whatever you want to call it. It's like matter has been here, and we create different compounds and mixtures with the elements, but the elements were always there, right? Yeah, it's nobody is the leader. There's always the idea that somebody gets chosen or somebody is looked up to for something they're bringing through that they want, right? And there's an understanding that I am the facilitator of the circles, but I'm constantly asking them to step up and step into a more uncomfortable zone so they can grow that edge, right? So when we're talking about developing all our colors of our rainbow, of our diamond light, right? There's all these spectrums. When the light pierces through the diamond, we have all the rays, and each one of these rays holds specific qualities. And we tend to be comfortable with some qualities that we navigate well, and other aspects of us we're not so versed in. And to become more holographic and more godlike, it's not about choosing one ray and being like, I am a blue, it's being so fluid that you can go from red to white to green to blue to gray to whatever color is manifesting at the time that is most important for you to embody, to do the transmission, to walk through that gate, that initiation, that moment in life, and you got to call that energy in. And the path of the feminine is to not be rigid, not to choose one title, not to be the one thing and the one word. It's completely opposite to that. It's become all things, embrace all things, be in touch with all your colors so you can use them when you need it most, more efficiently walk through an initiation, a pathway, a moment in your life, or help someone in need. And you need to step into that courage, And as women, for example, one of those qualities that we have deemed very masculine. The masculine have had so much opportunity to practice. And because women's worlds were so much restricted, so much more restricted, they're not about conquering countries and going to the battlefield. They were told to stay home, watch the kids cook and wash, right? And they couldn't even go to school. So our worlds was limited, so we didn't get the exposure or even the motivation to develop courage. And we were told that we were weak, so we're not supposed to be brave. It's almost feminine to be just dainty, and to not be courageous. And I find it's very important for all of us to step into our courage. And it's a masculine quality that I admire. And I see that men are more readily adjusted to do something that may be a little more unusual for a woman, And I see that everywhere, so that there's the beauty, there is no masculine, no feminine. It's just a group of qualities that we valued and we devalued the other. And it happened that women were the containers for this one and men were out in the world holding these. But women were also subject to these forces. So when we were able to walk out of the house, we absorbed them and we all became this, right? Mm-hmm. And now both men and women are like, let's look at this again, and women are taking the lead. And maybe that's why it's coming from us, and that's why maybe the Dalai Lama says the world's going to be saved by Western women. But it doesn't mean that the men are going to be left behind or they're not going to be part of it. No. Maybe we're waking up to this energy, and men are like having to question everything as well. And they're looking at it and going like, yep, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. It doesn't make sense, So men are joining this force, and they're getting in touch with their feminine, which has nothing to do with not being a man. You're a greater man when you're in touch with your feminine too. You're not just half a person. You're a whole person. Just the same when women take qualities from the masculine that they were not so adapt to because they didn't have opportunity to develop. And so we become whole. We become whole beings. I like to imagine the world one day, and I do, because I'm a visionary. I always see everything in perfect harmony already, where we will be natural beings. I call it natural. Just natural. Authentically whole, natural. I have no expectation of one person or the other to be one way or another, regardless of their gender preference or anything, color, belief system. It's just like, you're a natural person. You're comfortable in your skin and you trust what's coming out of you because the program has been erased. You're not listening to stories that we're told. You're not listening to the things that are tainted or that you have discovered to be manipulative. You're only listening to the truth. What feels natural to you?
I say act naturally, not normally. Normal
it
was imposed on us and was fed to us. If you look at television, they call it programming for a reason. And all the versions of feminine and masculinity on TV, I mean, you think about the early TV, it was the honeymooners, and it was like a dysfunctional guy and a functional woman that got no credit. She did everything, and the guy got all the credit. And he was just a loudmouth, blah, 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 right? And so, or there's this masculine hero, and then the woman's just freaking out all the time, dysfunctional woman. And it's rarely been of true balance. And so when we say holy, I don't think holy to me is only H-O-L-Y. It should be W-H-O-L-Y, whole, complete. And
yes.
Meaning that it's all of us in balance and harmony. And it's not only the masculine and feminine in society, it's the masculine and feminine inside of me and inside of you. And so I've seen this in back in the 80s, I used to make a bunch of lesbian punk rock music with a bunch of incredible lesbian girls, and they were all masculine, and they were acting out as the worst version of the men that they hated, and yet they were acting out as that, and that wasn't divine feminine to me. And then I saw in the gay men area them being the most dysfunctional woman, acting out as the most dysfunctional woman. And I always saw that when they'd find a balance between the two, then they would become a more whole person. And within ourselves, the machismo and so there's some balance in between to where we have the center road within all of us, finding that. Is there any advice on that?
To find the center, yeah?
Yeah, between the extremes.
Well, we are always going to, you have to see how we express ourselves. This choice to be one extreme or another is to give a message of where they're standing. And the extreme of it is to make sure that, you get that I am not this and that. And it's all a form of expression. It's just a language. It's a body language, right? We're using language to communicate. Unfortunately, still. I long for the time when we're going to be energetically telepathic and just be able to read each other's frequencies, and there's no words needs to be spoken because we're just feeling the truth, your truth emanate, and I can recognize that as you. It's your vibrational frequency signature, right? So we recognize people. We don't need names because your vibrational frequency has a unique tone, right? But to find the center is a lifelong journey. It's a multi-life journey. The center is ever more centering, and it's like this continuous evolutionary, a spiral that is infinitely spiraling into an ever tighter center. It's like we have to go through the layers. Like I said, I'm not an adept of the 1, 2, 3, step 1, step 2, step 3. It is a process of discovery. It's a process of, again, tuning into your truth and listen to what's real. Begin to tap into your own source, because we were entrained and programmed to not trust ourselves, not trust that the divine is inside, and protect our hearts, have defended hearts all the time, and walk in the world with such degree of disconnect from the inner self reality, the beauty and the potency and power that we have as an individual, and when that power is recognizing one another, the collective, will rise exponentially and bring in Earth and all body, everybody together is definitely gonna. Right now, I feel with what's happening, it's a global, for sure. It's a global ascension process. Not that everybody's going to end up in the same spot, because it's impossible. You can't skip 3rd and 4th grade. You can't go from 1st grade to high school. There's only one way through, and it's through it. But this global ascension is like, we're all going to get to the next best level for each one of us, wherever we're at. If we're in 4th grade, we're going to take it out. We're going to be like in 5th. And it's like, if you're in 3rd, you're going to be in 4th. But this is what I understand for global ascension. It's not like we're going to jump into 5th, 6th dimensional reality or density, however you prefer. But I don't believe that's necessary or needed, or it's the purpose of this planet. This planet is a big giant school, and we have to have all the grades, and the grades create the contrast, just like a painting which has light and shadow. If you had no darkness in a painting, you would have no depth. You couldn't see perspective. So the shadow gives you perspective. So the contrast can be painful, but it's teaching us all the time. Right? Does that make sense?
I totally agree. So for me, my last year was the worst year of my life. I just had a bunch of things oddly dissolve, and I was really disappointed in my life. So for the first time in my life, I've always typically been a pretty happy person. First time in my life, I had that little thing in the forehead. I was thinking too much. I was stressed out. I was worried, fear, anxiety, stress, lack of control. And this is what everybody's going through right now. I've already gone through. I went through it a few months ago, and what happened was I looked in the mirror and I was like, "You look horrible. You feel horrible. What's going on?" And so I started waking up every morning, just doing this simple little thing. And this is my simple little thing. And I try to do it every breath I take now. But it started off just 30 seconds every morning. I'd wake up and I'd smile. I just goofy smile. Like, see how I'm smiling and you're smiling now? It's contagious.
It is.
So laughter is contagious. Love is contagious. Fear is contagious. Anger is contagious. It's all contagious. So I would wake up and force myself a smile, just like the goofy smile. And what happened was I would start to feel different. I'd start to breathe different. And I could relax. And the fear and the anxiety and the habits and the patterns started going off. So I went back to the childhood thing of like when I was innocent and full of open-mindedness. And I actually started my day that way. And all those patterns started coming back of joy, innocence, fearlessness, gratitude, love. And I recentered myself, but I was in a bad place, and it was just a habit. The bad place was a habit, and then the new place is also a habit. So, when you said you wake up and you said a prayer every morning, was that your version of centering yourself for the habit? Could you explain how
that was a phase, and I think, like I said, who are we in each moment? Am I choosing there's the one way? Or am I fluid and flowing with each moment? What is in greater service to my continued attunement, right? Just like meditation, I can have phases where I meditate every day and some phases I don't feel like that's my tool. And again, we have to be very vigilant in my perception to the ways in which we still want to find the one way, and that's the way, right? And I feel like prayer has been a tool, meditation has been a tool, just gardening is a tool, walking, contemplative walking can be a tool, mantra can be a tool, and I like to navigate through them intuitively. And I listen every morning. What is my attunement going to be like today? I could just do a different one every day. And not one is better than another. You could do intuitive body movement and in nature and just feel that you're tapping into the light grids and all the invisible luminescence of our beings that we can't even, when you see like a certain forms of visionary art that reflect, if we could see, if we have full clairvoyance, we would see this universe of light, right? So we can use visualization, we can use all kinds of things. So to answer your question, yes, at that time, and prayer was a huge part of my life, the first half of my life. Now I do other things, there's frequency prayers where I don't have any words. There's no words to my prayer. It's just, it's called modern prayer. It's just a pure tapping into the love, into the heart, and letting that emanate and envelop the whole world. Just like slowly filling up your room, and just this openness and this compassion that is encompassing and growing, and that regardless, you don't need to know who it's touching. You don't want to have a judgment over anything. You're just allowing your love to touch whoever it needs to touch, the whole planet, all the underwater plants and animals, the trees, the skies, and then expanding beyond that, feeling your energy reach the stars and the suns and the galaxies, and you become this giant love, and you just, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. You're just hoping that somehow your love, your compassion, your contribution will help people be happy and free, the universe be happy and free, harmony to reign. So I am a bit of I guess I flow with each moment, with each day, and all forms of attunement are important and are valid, and there's no one better than another.
That's a beautiful place for us to wrap this up. I'm really impressed with all your wisdom and knowledge. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we need to know about your groups or circles and how people can join them?
Well, like I told you, I'm about to. At some point, I will put this website up. It will be kalyanisundari.com, and it will integrate the aspect of the sound healing music and my offerings as a counselor, as a soul counselor, or soul coach, and hands-on healing, and all the offerings that I'm going to bring through as a writer as well. Everything is integrated there. The articles but in the meantime, I use Facebook as a platform because it's so open and anybody can message me. I have, once the lockdown is over, I'm going to continue to have the sisterhood circles here, and 2 or 3 times a year, or 3 to 4 times a year. It's usually 3. I do the solstices and equinoxes, except for the winter solstice, because it's so cold and there's a lot to do in the family with all the holidays. I do something smaller, but the community that is around me gathers, and it's men and women alike, and we share in the garden and we explore cosmologies, in the sacred garden, and we just unite our souls and talk about love and how to connect more and how to become an influential facilitator of love in the planet with our gifts, and we share our new creations. So if you want to be a part of that and you're in the Los Angeles area or Orange County, please reach out to me through Facebook. And if you want to know a little more about my music, you go to Kaliyani.com, www.kaliyani.com. And then in the future, there'll be a KaliyaniSundari.com, and hopefully I'll see you there too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic hour. Thank you.
Thank you. It's such a joy.
All right. Blessings.